Welcome to the Feature Spotlight webinar, our first Spotlight webinar of the year, January 2026, a year in which I think it is fair for us to begin asking seriously, where are the flying cars we were promised? Well, I can't provide you with any flying cars, but I do have a feature that you might find of interest for this month, and which will be part of the next release of Process Director. So for today, we are going to be discussing Timeline Activity Exports. It's a new feature that will enable you to select one or more timeline activities from one timeline, export them, and import them as is into another timeline. That'll be our first topic. Then we'll diverge a little bit and talk about the upcoming release, whether it's going to be called .500 or .600, and if that matters. There are some other enhancements that we have added to the product, one of which I really like and is far overdue as far as I'm concerned. And then finally, we'll end up, as always, covering some of the bug fixes that we've addressed over the past month. So with that, let's get into timeline activity exports. So for Process Director 6.1.600 and higher, and again, we'll talk about that version number in a second, there is a new capability. We can select one or more process timeline activities from one timeline definition, and we can export them to XML, place that XML file anywhere we'd like on our local machine, and then we can open up a different timeline definition, and then we can export or import those activities into any timeline definition. So with that in mind, let us do a little bit of a demo. Now, before we begin, I will tell you that the actual export isn't working on this machine. This is the most recent version of the product that I can get right now. So it is running the latest dev build of 6.1.600, as you can see up here. However, it does not actually do the export itself, but all the UI pieces are here. So let's take a look at it. First of all, anytime that you open up a process timeline definition, there is now a new action link called Import Activities, which appears up at the top. So you can always import your activities as soon as you open up a process timeline. To export an activity, all you have to do is just click on an activity. When you click on one, you can see that the import activities changes, and there's now an export activities action link at the top of the page. So I can select one or more. So let's say I wanted to select everything in this loop. I could select it and then click Export Activities. When I do, a small dialog box will appear that tells us that selected activities will be exported to an XML file. Lets us know that we've selected 5 activities. Then we can click the Export button. Clicking it, in my case, does nothing because the actual export feature doesn't work. But in the real world, it will. When I next update documentation, I'm sure this will work. But there we go. We've exported our activities. Similarly to import our activities, and I'll have to deselect all these so I can get my import action link back. When you click Import Activities, well, you get a selector so that you can actually open up the file dialog on your machine, and you can go and find the XML file that contains your exported activities. And then once you've selected it, you can just click the import button. Of course, right now it says, please choose a document to upload. I don't have a document because while the import looks like it works, the export doesn't work. So I don't have an XML file, but that is the process that you'll use to do that export and import. Now, why are we doing it in XML? Traditional copying and pasting is not going to work for exporting timeline activities. A timeline activity is not a single object that we can copy and paste. It is, in fact, quite a complex number of database objects that exist. For example, if we take a look at a timeline activity, so we'll just open up one of these user activities. Each of these activities is a database record. However, the entire timeline activity is not contained in a single database record. This information on the activity tab is, but what happens if we choose a custom task activity type? Well, now I've got an external link that goes to a custom task. Start when, I've got dependencies that are stored separately. And I've also got conditions. So if I click to create a condition, and it opens up the condition builder and I begin adding conditions. Well, conditions are stored completely separately as well. Not sure why it opened that up in the way that it did, but in the event, we can go back here. And by the way, we have multiple conditions. We've got start when conditions, we've got completed when conditions, we've got due date conditions. If we go to the due date tab, we might have links to the form itself. We might have system variables wouldn't matter, but this is a user activity and I don't have the due date set for, I had it set from a system variable. I don't have, I'm thinking of something different. Sorry. In any event, we have a link to a machine learner to set duration. So we've got all of these different things that are going on in an activity. It's not just one thing that we can copy and paste. So because of the complexity, what we have to do, and the only way to really do this is to be able to use the same system that we use to export process timeline definitions to export the activities themselves. So we have to export them in XML file because we have to export all of the data, and all of that data needs to be imported into the target system. So if we have conditions, those conditions have to be created and placed in table conditions set. If we have a custom task, those custom tasks have to be linked. So it becomes it's a much more complicated process than simply copying and pasting. It would be great if I could just, select an activity and hit Control C and then open up a different definition and Control V and everything just worked like magic. But sadly, it is not magic. And therefore, we can't really do it that way. So the best way that we've been able to find is through the use of the XML format. And by making use of that format, when it's imported, we can include all of the conditions and all of the dependencies and all of the other relationships between activities and custom tasks or machine learning objects that would have to exist in both systems, obviously, for the import to work properly. But XML allows us to preserve the data structure, the complete data structure of the timeline activity. So this is a new feature. It will be in Process Director 6.1.600 and higher. Let's talk about that. I have talked a lot about 6.1.500 and also 6.1.600 a little bit. And I think we talked about it last night. By the way, I just want to notice software Relazamin deployation is the AI text in this image. I wish I'd have noticed that prior to this, and I would have tried to find something that either had real English in it or had no text at all. In any event, just an amusing sidelight. So what is the next version of Process Director? I've been saying for months it's 6.1.500, and that is true for some customers. And it's also going to be called 6.1.600 for other customers. So essentially, the problem is that there are currently, and this will most likely be resolved in the not too distant future, but for the moment, we're trying to throw several major features into Process Director, one of which is the Pathfinder AI feature, which I think is going to have a lot of value for you. I am generally, I'm trying to find a diplomatic way of putting this. I am generally an AI skeptic of the way that many companies in this era of AI hype have implemented AI. And they've done it in what some would consider to be either a predatory manner, or they have done it in a manner that has a lot of flash but very little utility. At BP Logix, from the leadership on down, our approach to AI has been to recognize that we are still in the hype phase of AI. And so there's going to be a lot of AI promises that either don't pan out or that pan out in a way that we don't like. And we know that we're in this cycle. And so in our use of AI, we have decided to make sure that A, there's always a human in the loop to ensure that what the AI is doing is valid. And B, that what we do for AI is there to provide value to customers. It has to be of some real worth. And this is a philosophy that we have both internally at BP Logix and that we want to display externally to customers. And so with Pathfinder, we're going slow, but we are doing something major by enabling Pathfinder to be able to be trained on your custom documentation and to be able to provide help and answers from that custom documentation and from the Process Director documentation as well. The problem is that we have two separate customer bases. We have life sciences customers that don't actually run the platform, or at least they don't know they're running the platform. They're running life sciences or scientific applications that we have built at BP Logix. They run on the platform, so they leverage the platform, but these are unique apps that do specific things, quite complex things, as it turns out, but they do one thing really well. And for life sciences customers, they don't really know that they're on the platform. So what Pathfinder has to do for them is different than what Pathfinder needs to do for platform customers. If you're a life sciences customer, Pathfinder needs to be able to help you to use Appruvia or PubPro or MIS or something like that, one of the life sciences or general scientific applications that we sell as off-the-shelf software. And that's one version of Pathfinder. And there's another version of Pathfinder that is really for platform customers. And it will know stuff about Process Director. And if you desire, you can make it know stuff about your individual applications so that you can take your custom applications and you can place them inside Process Director and build them, and then build the documentation, load the documentation for them into Pathfinder, and enable your users to be able to answer questions about the application itself. So there are kind of two forks of the product right now, one that is concentrated on life science and one that is concentrated on general platform customers. Therefore, they're going to have different release numbers, 6.1.500 and 6.1.600. That's how we're tracking. Ultimately, all of the Pathfinder features and functionality are going to be the same across both the platform and the life sciences customers. That is going to take some extra development time. And ultimately, there will be a unified product that uses both. For now, however, there are going to be kind of two forks. So I'm going to talk about 6.1.600 600 mainly because that is going to be really the platform fork, and 6.1.500 is going to be the life sciences fork. At least I'm pretty sure that's how it is. I may have that wrong. It may be vice versa. But I think 600 is the platform version, 500 is the life sciences version. So, as a practical matter, other than certain things in Pathfinder that will work in life sciences and either won't yet work in the platform or will work differently in the platform, other than that, I think that for general things like bug fixes and new features, it doesn't really matter whether I say .500 or .600. We can assume that those are interchangeable outside of sort of the restricted world of Pathfinder. So based on the customer type you are, that will determine what the actual version number is that you see when you go into the IT admin section of Process Director. But in general, we are not having two completely different development forks where, feature A works this way on one and another way on the other. They are going to be unified, but for right now, it's useful for us, especially for our engineering team who need to do some specific stuff for the life sciences customers that don't need to be done for the platform customers. At the moment, there are two forks. And so I'll say 6.1.500 or 600, whichever one I say, don't worry about it. It's going to be the same for both, for almost everything outside of some very narrow stuff in Pathfinder. So we're targeting this new .500/.600 release in the next couple of weeks. We wanted to get it out in December. We just did not have the bandwidth to do it because, of course, for the last 2 weeks in December, who's here? People leave, they go away for the holidays, and we wanted to be able to run it through some testing, especially because Pathfinder has a lot of new stuff. We really want to have much more rigorous testing on that. So we're going to roll out these releases based on customer segments. So we may roll out .500 to some customers first, and then .600 to other customers a little later. We are planning on being able to communicate this to you, usually via your BP Logix account manager. Sooner or later, and probably sooner, we'll be finalizing the exact release dates to get that out to you. All right, with all of that said, let's continue on to the final two topics. First of all, some enhancements. So we've got new versions of some of the custom tasks: import files from file system, PDF annotations, convert to PDF, and the manipulate array data custom task. There are new versions for those. They're not all of them quite ready in the package that we have for download, but please watch the download packages because I'm pretty sure that whenever we release 6.1.500, we're going to release new versions of those custom tasks. I think for import files from file system, the new version is already up, but I'm not sure that for the PDF ones they are. But keep a close eye on the support site for the custom task downloads so that you can get those updated versions of that custom task. I've talked about this before, and I showed you kind of previews of it. But if you have collaborative document authoring, CDA, and you are using Microsoft 365, which, by the way, is no longer called Microsoft 365 or Microsoft Office 365. It's suddenly now called Microsoft Copilot. So Office is now Copilot, but Copilot is also Microsoft's own proprietary AI thing. I don't pretend to understand Microsoft's marketing on this. So we're just going to call it M365 for now because that was the name that they called it last year. And so if you are using M365, that's a rather complex setup to get M365 to work with collaborative document authoring, because all of your documents now have to be stored in your M365 system. So we've added some troubleshooting stuff into the product for M365. I'm not going to show it to you. Most of you do not use CDA, and those that do generally don't use Microsoft 365. Those who do use it really want it. And so we have some migration troubleshooting capabilities as well. And I think I showed you last month the new RAG management configuration for Pathfinder, where you can upload your own documentation into Pathfinder so that the AI can use it as part of the chat bot, and you can ask it questions and stuff. So we've added those tools in as well. Some security improvements. First of all, for Pathfinder, we're going to need some different logging and log types for Pathfinder and its operation. Much of what Pathfinder does is behind the scenes, and you're not going to want it as part of your normal logging. So we don't show you Pathfinder logs at log level 0. So you'd have to increase the logging level to at least logging level 1 to see some of the Pathfinder logging. It's not going to be helpful for you as a customer, but it might be helpful for our engineering team if you run into some sort of Pathfinder issue and we need to ask you for the logs. We'll probably ask you to switch your logging up to level 1 and export those logs. Another thing that we have is the form instances. We run into, and it's always one of the things that's always a problem with web-based forms, is you have one person open the form, and then they forget they opened it, and they open 2 or 3 or 4 different copies of it. We don't really want you to do that, because if it's an existing form, it really increases the possibility of you having a data crash on your own system between 2 of the same form instances that you have open. So we're going to impose limits so that if you open up an instance of a form, you can't open a multiple copies of that form instance. If you try, it'll just tell you, you've already got this form instance open. You need to work on that form instance. So we're trying to prevent those data crashes that happen inadvertently when people open up multiple copies of the same form instance. Let's talk about bug fixes and improvements for that. So there's some core functionality. If you were copying from Word and you were on a form, you had an input field, and you had the input field set to use the text editor, and you tried to paste some stuff directly from Microsoft Word into the text editor, things could get a little wonky. And in fact, sometimes it wouldn't let you paste at all, and you'd have to go through some intermediate step, like, opening up your text editor, whatever you use, VS Code, whatever it might be, Notepad, pasting stuff into Notepad, then copying it out of Notepad and pasting it over. Not a major deal breaker, but certainly inconvenient if you couldn't paste directly out of Word. So we fixed that. We also fixed the content list in a couple of ways. And I do want you to notice this, because this is the one that I was mentioning earlier that was wildly overdue. Let me open, while we're here, training.bplogix.net, because I want to show you something. So on training.bplogix.net, which is running 3.55, so this is the most recent version to which you would likely have access. If I open up training and I log into training and I look at my content list, and we'll go into, okay, we want to documentation and training. Actually, it's even better if we open up support. Let's open up the support folder. So let's take a look at what we see. Everything is in alphabetical order. And you'd think that would be great, right? Well, you're wrong. It's worse than being stabbed, because here we go. Folder, 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 knowledge view, folder, 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 CSV file, image, folder, folder, Excel file, folder, knowledge view, data source, timeline. Everything is all mixed up and it's all higgledy-piggledy. Yes, it's all in alphabetical order, which technically should be fine, but it's not fine. It's absolutely horrible. So for 6.500, we're not going to do that anymore. It's still going to be in alphabetical order, but we are going to group folders first and then objects below folders. This makes me happy. This is a great change and one that I am happy to see, because this is just awful. You'd think straight off the top of your head that putting things in alphabetical order would be fine, and it's not. It's terrible. So we're not going to do that anymore. Our timeline, our content list rather, is going to look like this. And this is going to make everybody, I think, much, much happier with that fix. Also, there was an issue with the searches. Now, I can't demonstrate it to you because I have full access to everything on this machine, but there was an issue where if I don't have permissions to view an object in the content list, it just doesn't show up here. Great, as far as that goes. Thing is, if I went and did a search, all of my searches would actually show me those objects to which I had no access. Now, I'm not supposed to see them. And if I click on them, it won't open them because I don't have permission to view them, but I shouldn't be seeing them here in a search result. So, and we were, so we fixed that. So now we aren't. So whenever you do a search, the search will return only objects that you have permissions to view in the content list. So it was not really a security issue because you still couldn't access the object, but it's still irksome that you could see stuff, especially from a system administrator's point of view, that I might not want you to see on the system. So now you can't see that anymore. For arrays, there were some visibility and visibility and enabling conditions that weren't working exactly as expected in arrays. We addressed that. There were some minor UI and accessibility issues. We are working on accessibility. It is one of our major focuses, especially because we have so many higher education customers that are facing a drop dead date this year to ensure that their forms are all accessible. So there's been a big effort between us and our higher education partners to try to find these accessibility issues and fix them prior to that deadline date. So that's one of the reasons why there are, often very small incremental releases, because we're trying to get these accessibility fixes out. So the accessibility fixes will be going on through March, I'm sure, because that's what the deadline is. I think it's the middle of March that we have to have any accessibility issues that we find fixed. The data list control had a little issue where you'd set a column to be not visible and you'd run it and that would get reset and it would just be a visible column anyway. So you were constantly having to go into the design view and reset it. Every time you opened up the form definition in the online form designer, you'd have to turn all those off. That was irksome. So we fixed that. And there were some minor display inconsistencies. Nothing major, but things just in one context look one way, and then you go to a different object and they look a different way. So we've just tried to make the UI a more unified experience for you across the board. And with that is all I have for you today. So let me stop sharing. Let me take one quick look to see if anyone has any questions about what we've covered. It does not appear that anyone does. So I think that we are done. As always, thank you for joining me today. It's a pleasure to speak to you. For those of you who attend the training webinar, I will see you on Thursday. For the rest of you, I'll see you next month. Have a great month. So long.